Okay, welcome everybody to this Zoom call. This is a special subject that we've never talked about before that I know of. We're going to talk about our pets and Sunrider. So it should be pretty special, and I hope we can get a lot of interesting feedback from this after we're all done. So I'm excited. For the speakers, we're going to start off with Margie, and she's going to tell us about her cat.
Well, actually, it's not my cat, but I had a friend who, I actually have two stories. So the first one is about my friend who had a Persian cat, and you know how beautiful the Persian cats have, the long hair. Well, it had was losing all of its hair, and she had taken it to the vet, and the vet told her it was a liver problem. So she was a big Cali drinker, and she was originally from England, so she loved the teas anyway. But Cali, she goes, Cali's supposed to nourish the liver, so she just started putting Cali in the cat's water dish instead of water, and that cat, whatever happened, I mean, the doctor gave it no chance of survival, whatever, but the cat just grew all his hair back and was just fine. And then the second story I have is a friend had a dog who had a tumor on its behind, and she was very concerned because the doctors were telling her, you know, they'd have to do all this stuff and see if it was cancer or whatever, you know, but she knew that Dr. Chen had said that alpha 20C is really good for the immune system, which will help shrink tumors. So that's why she started opening up the capsules and sprinkling alpha 20C on the dog's food. And probably she kept doing it every day. And probably, I think she said after a month, she realized, she turned and she goes, the tumor was gone. And she told our kids, look, where's the tumor? Did you guys do it? You know, have you seen? And it just shrunk and disappeared. And so that dog, she was looking at thousands of dollars for surgery and different things. So that's all she did. And that's all the stories. And my pets always get Sunrider, so I don't have any disease problems with them. That's my story.
Thank you, Margie.
I already have a question for Margie.
Is that Mary?
Can I ask it?
Go ahead,
So
Mary.
when you say that you already give Sunrider to your cat, can you be specific about what it is you do?
I actually don't have a cat. I have a dog. I had dogs, and my kids now have their dogs, but it's just mostly just putting quinine in there. And Cali, I used Cali too because of what happened to my friend's cat. I'm like, I put whatever my leftover in my pot, I'll just, you know, so.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. All right, next we have Lisa is going to share some really unique stories. Go ahead, Lisa, your turn.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, my dog, and I'll tell you what my dog eats every morning, is that, and I did a little video of her having it the other day so I could put it on Rising Stars, but so I give her the rest of my drink every morning. So she waits for me to finish my drink, and then she gets the end. And so the little story is basically how healthy she is. She'll be 17 next month, and she jumps up and down at the door, and I mean, she's just like a young dog. It's amazing. And someone came to one of my Sunrider things, and he said, you know, your dog looks a lot like my dog, but her coat is so much prettier. And he said how old she was, and he was shocked at how old she was then. And then he said, do you give her Sunrider? And I said, every day. So that was a nice story for me to know. But the one that was really amazing was years ago when I first got in Sunrider. I took my business card into a high health. And I knew that High Health wasn't going to carry Sunrider, but I said to the manager, if you ever have anybody who's looking for Sunrider, I know you can't sell it here, but if you are, then would you give them my name and number? And she said, yeah, I can do that. The weird thing was just a couple days later, she called me and she goes, this is so bizarre, but my holistic vet, which I'd never heard of before, but my holistic vet told me to get Conco and Alpha 20C from a Sunrider distributor because my puppy and my old dog both have parvo. And very serious, life-threatening, you know. And so she came over and got the two products from me, and she ended up coming to one of our hotel meetings and gave the experience because both the puppy and the old dog lived through that. So that was a very exciting thing for me, you know, to just be starting Sunrider and find that out and to have made a difference in dogs' lives. Mary has another question.
Yeah, because I have a cat that I'm seriously going to do Sunrider on, and that's why I'm on here. So the parvo, I don't have a dog, but I have a cat. But I have friends who have dogs. So when you say you give your dog your morning drink, what is the morning drink? And also, how much Alpha C and what else did you say? Conco was given to the dog? How much, or you know, if you.
Okay, so for me, when I drink my drink, it's a Cali in a glass about that big, Cali, and then Sun Nectar is what I put in the morning, and then a package of the original New Plus, a whole package, and a whole Quinery, and that's what I drink every morning for when I get up for breakfast. So she gets the end of that, and it's probably about 4 tablespoons. Then about, I don't know, a few months ago, she started doing this my dog started doing this runny nose thing. And so, and we had just had the training from Karen Dees about the golden seal and how you could do that regularly and not treat it as medicine. So she likes, I have dried elk. So I cut off a little bitty piece and I put it in a bowl, and because then she would go after it. And then I just put a sprinkling of Conco, a sprinkling of Alpha 20C, and like a third of a capsule. And then about the same amount of the golden seal. And I was giving her that every day for about 5 days. I took her into the vet, which I did find a holistic vet. So I took her into that vet. And I said, you know, she's fine now, but I just want you to check her. And so she checked her lungs and she checked her all over and she was fine. So, you know, I did that for about 5 days before I took her into the vet. And then regarding the ones with parvo, I mean, it's sort of you just do kind of what comes to you, but I might do a half a capsule or a capsule full, put it in some Cali, put it in some water. She didn't buy any Cali. She just used the two, Alpha 20C and Conco. That's what I would do.
Thank you, Lisa.
Welcome.
Judy, do you want to go next?
Okay, sure. Hearing these brings it back because we've always had pets through the years and a lot of different ones, but my just quick one was I had 3 cats that got distemper, and when we were living in Payson during the winter, and it was very cold, kind of a rainy winter, and also I thought, well, all 3 have it. Most don't live through distemper, but I got Liquify and Golden Seal, and with a cat, you wrap it with a towel, so you know their arms can't be scratched and all, and I would hold that and eye dropper it, and they were over it in 4 days max with all of them. But the story I want to share is about Dave the Wonder Dog, and we called him the Wonder Dog because we wondered about him. But Dave was a big golden retriever mix, and very laid back, kind of like, if you ever saw that movie Funny Farm, kind of like Yellow Dog. But anyway, we lived in Payson and it back to the national forest. So we had an acreage, but we would of course feed the dogs and keep them in an area at night. But during the day, if we were around there, we let them do what they wanted to do. And so one afternoon, late evening, Dave didn't return. All the other animals, you know, headed back in and all, but we couldn't find Dave. So I was, of course, extremely worried, but I didn't know what to do because of the forest and everything. So next morning, still no Dave. And then about late afternoon, here comes Dave slowly across the field, and his one front leg was the size of a log. And so we knew he had been bitten by a rattlesnake. And oh my goodness, he kept getting closer, but he was in such pain, he wouldn't allow us to even touch him. But we got him closer, but we couldn't get him to the house. We got him like at the edge of the field, and Quick called the vet, and they said, oh, what do you do for snake bite? Well, we observe them. Then we might have to, might end up losing the leg. We try to get the blood flow through the leg, all these like horrendous outcomes for this bad situation. And also they rubbed DMSO on the leg. They would probably do that. And I said, well, and it was towards the evening. So they go, well, we're about to leave. And I said, well, he is in such pain. We cannot lift, because he's big. We can't lift him into the car. So can my husband run in and get the DMSO just and see how he does through the night? And she said, oh, I guess so. Yeah, we could sell you some DMSO. And so I'm thinking, okay, they talked about that. They talked about circulation. I'm thinking, what balances the body? You know, what can help him? So I got a Liquify and Sunrise because of recovery, muscle. I don't know what my thinking was at the moment, but and Life Stream. And I mixed it all together in a paste. And you know, he couldn't get away from me. So it was great. So I would just spoon that in his mouth. And so I did it that night, the next, and I thought, you know, I really don't want him, he's either gonna make it or isn't. And I don't want him to lose his leg. So I did it several times the next day. And by that evening, you know, he was kind of more up, not standing yet. Third day, he was standing and a little bit harder to get it in his mouth. Fourth day, I couldn't catch him. And the swelling came down. So he was totally okay and lived a long, healthy life. And in his very old age, he seemed to have occasional, like I would compare it to in a human, TIAs or little mini strokes occasionally. And I don't know if it was just his age or if it was a result of the rattlesnake bite, but we had to remember to put Callie on his food. Like if my husband fed him, I could tell if he forgot it. And so as long as we had Callie on his food, he would not have those. And he would go a long time in between, but if we, you know, you had to be consistent with it. But he was a good dog and we were happy to use that with him.
Thank you. Those are some awesome stories, testimonies, and I think we can listen to these and apply them not only for our pets, but also think about our own health challenges and think about the wisdom that we're gaining here. So my next speaker is going to be Jessica Bosley. And Jessica had an experience many years ago when she first got into Sunrider with her dog. I'm going to have her. Can you unmute yourself, Jessica? Let's see if I can unmute. Can you unmute? Jessica? Maybe she's taking a break. Nancy, can you go next? Nancy Gellos.
Sure, I'm happy to.
Thank
Well,
you.
I've got, over the years, those of us that have been around a long time, it seems like we have fed our families and then also our pet families and friends' families. So it's great that we're having this call because we remember things. But recently, I have a very older cat, 17 years, and she just in this last several months started becoming very, very matted, stopped grooming herself, started losing a lot of weight. And really, she looked like a feral rat. And it was seemingly very, very quick. So what I did was I started sprinkling New Plus Original and Quinery on her wet food. I didn't change anything else. I was giving her a high quality real cat food and canned because she was so dry. So I'd been doing that anyway, but I started adding this in the morning with her morning meal. So I would say maybe a tablespoon of the New Plus and just a sprinkling of the Quinery over the top. And then I would just mix it in. And within 6 weeks, she looks like a brand new cat. No more mats. Hair is shiny. She probably gained at least 1.5 pounds or 2 pounds, and she's not a big cat. Because I used to I could feel her ribs when I would pet her on her back. And I thought, well, she's probably like she's really getting old. And then, it was probably took about a week until I started noticing she started grooming herself again. It's almost like whatever it was giving her enough food. And my thought had always been all of the cats that we've ever had have always loved New Plus. And usually my New Plus drink has got Quinery in it or Alpha 20C or something. I did with this particular cat, I added Alpha 20C after about 4 weeks to the mixture. And she just looks like she did 5-10 years ago. I mean, she looks great. So that's a recent one. And then I also had a friend get a hold of me 2 weeks ago because her dog underwent some very big surgery on his teeth and had a bunch of teeth removed. And so she contacted me to find out what to do because he had all these gaps in his mouth and was miserable. So she started giving him Cali and Alpha 20C and New Plus Original. And really all of this is just a sprinkling. It's not a lot. It's just the consistency of it. And then putting Sun Nectar on his open gums. And within just a couple days, she got back to me and said, oh my gosh, he's healing up. He's acting normal. So she kept that up and then actually just recently said, hey, I want to talk to you about what we can do with my son. So I like your comment, Jackie, about, the pets intuitively know this is good for them. That's why they come and they want it, just like we know it's good. But even more intuitively, I always figured my cats were really wanting this food. So it must be that they know it's good. They wouldn't eat it if they didn't know that. So I've always been very much like give the end of my New Plus to the cat when I'm out in the garden. But really what I'm most impressed about this was like this for me with this particular cat was really almost like crisis management, because anyone else would have probably thought, it's just her time. But now she's robust and happy again. So I would feed it to my pet every day now. Before I just did it sporadically, but now it's like, no, it's not a big deal to take a pack of New Plus, sprinkle it over their food, add a little Quinery, add a little Alpha 20C if you want to, and like the Cali, the same things everyone's been using has been what we've been using over the years.
Thank you, Nancy. Jay had a question. Is there anybody on this call that's new to Sunrider? You can go to.
Well, I'm fairly new,
Okay.
but I do have a question about my cat, so that's why I'm on here.
Okay. But you are, Mary, you know what New Plus and Quinery and Cali are? Nourish, balance, and cleanse. Okay. All right.
Jackie?
Jessica. Yes, Jessica, you want to tell your story?
Yes, I'm sorry. I had to reboot the call to get it to unmute.
Okay.
Yeah, this was so long ago. I'll try to remember all the details. But we were pretty new to Sunrider. We had quite a bit of product in the house at the time. And so I felt like we were really blessed. We were trying just about everything. And we had a dog that was a purebred that had another terrier catch her when she was in heat, just as she escaped the side door. And so we wound up with a puppy that was uglier than sin. And we couldn't get anyone to take it. But so we were, keeping it, but we weren't going to give it any shots or anything. And it was barely, I think, about 6 months, I want to say, 6 months old when it came down with parvo. And we didn't know what it was. We just knew that it was really sick. And we finally found a vet that would agree to, just diagnose the dog and give us an idea of what we needed to do. And they said that the dog had parvo and it'd been like 4 days, and his chances of survival were zero, were nothing. He could not survive if we didn't take him to a pet hospital. And if we did take him to a pet hospital, his chance of survival was 20% because it'd been already 4 days. And he was so dehydrated and in such bad shape. He couldn't hold anything down. If you know anything about parvo, they throw up and they get diarrhea, and they can't eat anything, they can't drink anything. They just basically, they lose everything and they die. Well, so not wanting this poor puppy to die, I called a lady in the ward who I knew was a vet and had treated animals with Sunrider, and asked her, what do I do? And she said, give the dog everything you've got. Make it into a liquid and shoot it down his throat and give him everything you've got. So I did that. Plus I went over to a pet supply place that sells injections of antibiotics. And they told me how to give an injection to the dog. And they were syringes that were already had antibiotics in them. Plus I gave the dog Golden Seal in with the mix of New Plus, Quinary, Sunrise, Fortune Delight, and can't remember if there was anything else, just water. And I made that into a paste and then into enough liquid that I could suck it up in a syringe bulb that I had gotten from the hospital when I came home from the hospital with my kids. And I sterilized that, and then I used that to shoot down his throat. And he actually seemed to like it. And I thought he would throw up, but he never did. And we tried giving him water, but he wouldn't drink anything until like after, I think it was like 4 days. We were feeding him as like 2 or 3 times a day. I think I had to work at the time, and I'd come home in the evening and he'd still be alive and still seemed to a little bit more perky every time I'd see him. By day 4, he was so frisky and eating solid foods and drinking water that I couldn't even keep him quarantined anymore. So we let him out, and he never had any other problems after 4 days.
Oh, that's like a miracle. Thank you, Jessica. I understand, Sadie, you have a story. Would you like to tell us your experience?
My story is kind of interesting. Back when I was about 20 years old, I worked as a volunteer for the wildlife zoo, and one of the tigers had gotten really, really sick. He had a big gouge in his arm, and they had tried to treat him, but he wasn't reacting very well to antibiotics, and we later found out that sometimes they will let the animal die because the insurance will pay them a little bit more than it will be all the expenses of trying to get the animal well. But we worked with the cat guy that was the feeder or the caretaker for the animals, and we just said, well, it can't hurt. I mean, he's not getting any better. Can we crush up they gave him like big swabs of meat, like raw meat, or it seemed like it raw, maybe it was cooked, but it was a big pound of meat that they would feed him with. And so we would just pour just 2 or 3 packets of quinine into the meat and just smash it all up to try to get him to ingest a little bit of quinine. And we did that, and then we would, while he was eating, he was stuck in a smaller cage so I could get close enough to him, and I had Cali and just a couple drops of fruit and vegetable wash. Then I put up a couple Cali, it was a real strong Cali, and a couple drops of fruit and vegetable rinse inside the spray bottle, and I would just sit there and just spray, just spray the heck out of his arm. And it was a big gouge. It was like 4 or 5 inches deep, and he couldn't walk on it hardly at all. And I don't know, they just had given up the ghost for him. They were just going to let him just get well on his own or not doing anything. But it took about, I'd say a good 3 weeks. And then it started closing up, and he started licking it more, and he started feeling better, and he started walking and getting around, and it healed up, and they were really surprised. But it was only Cali that I could get in him, and he probably licked that Cali too and probably internalized that as well. But the fruit and veggie rinse was all we gave him, and then quinine was the only thing I could afford to get in there. And I just thought if I could get one thing in, it would be that. So yeah, he got better.
Well, that is a most unusual story. Most of us are thinking cats, dogs. Nobody was thinking tiger. Wow. Thank you so much. Dawn, I know Gail, Dawn's wife, used to give their dogs Sunrider. Do you have any interesting stories you'd like to share? You know how to unmute? Maybe you could ask.
There you go.
Here you go.
You got me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Well, we had 2 King Dobermans, and we found out that you couldn't trust the people that are making dog food. They were killing our dogs. And when we found that out, Gail started doctoring them with New Plus, and I don't think she ever used the quinine, or she might have used the quinine powder. I don't think she ever used the liquid 5. But they improved on that, and according to statistics that we figured, see the pet food producers, they put a thing called copper sulfate in their dog food, and most of them do. And our Dobermans are highly susceptible to copper sulfate, and our female, I come out one morning, she's laying on, her eyes were open, she didn't move. You could barely tell she was breathing. We couldn't revive her. We picked her up and took her to the vet. The vet didn't know what was the matter. We went to 4 different vets, and none of them knew what was wrong with her. And Gail was reading in the back of the Doberman book, and found out susceptible to copper sulfate. Well, the last doctor we went to, she was, it's a female, she had been raising Dobermans, and she knew about it. She knew what to do about it. Anyway, so our dogs survived, and our dogs lived to 15. And the pet food industry doesn't want them to live any more than 10 years, because they make their most money in the first few years. So they want you to get a new pet, I think, anyway. That's my own personal opinion. But our dogs thrived with the with the new plus. And I'm pretty sure Gail did put the quinary into the food too. And we started feeding them from a company in Montreal that was making what they claimed was food equal to human food, and they said they were using human food to make it, and it looked like it. We had to buy it regular. You couldn't store it because they didn't put preservatives in it. You had to buy it on a regular basis. You know, they'd ship up a supply for a couple of weeks, and then they'd ship another one, and so on. That worked out pretty good for our dogs, and they had a good quality of life after we started feeding them that way. In fact, they were brighter. When we took them down the park, they'd play games with us and everything, and they did before, but they were a little bit more robust after we took them off that pet food. That's about all I have to say on it. We've been using Sunrider for, I guess it's almost 37 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I've never been sorry. And nobody that I've ever, my whole family, they agree it's great stuff, great food. They all use it.
Dawn, I don't know if you know the answer to this question. Melina has a question. She wants to know, is copper proteinate the same as copper sulfate? I really don't know the answer to that. Do you know?
Copper
Does anybody know?
Proteinate?
Copper proteinate, is it the same as copper sulfate? Does anybody know?
I don't think it is. A sulfate is one thing, a proteinate is another, and I don't know the difference. I wouldn't want to say that I knew, but I would say if it has copper in it, you want to check it out. If you have Dobermans, anyway. If they're highly susceptible to copper sulfate, who knows? Is it the sulfate or the copper? I don't.
Right.
The UK banned copper sulfate, or I'm sorry, the EU did. We just haven't in the US.
Okay.
Well, it was in Canada, so they haven't banned it in Canada either, I guess, because it was in the. I was feeding Iams Ukanuba, and it was lamb and rice. That's what we were serving. But the funny thing of it is we had a Doberman previous to that, about 10 years earlier, and we were feeding her on hills. And the same thing happened to her. We didn't know what was wrong with her, and finally we had to put her down because her hind end went out on her. But she didn't live as long as the other two dogs, not at all.
Denise, you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I'm just, while David was talking, Donald was talking, I wanted to look it up. That it groups it all together. They're man-made coppers: copper sulfate, copper proteinate, copper amino acid chelates. So what it does is it causes progressive damage of the liver.
Ooh,
That sounds about right.
that's not good. Elizabeth, did you want to say something? I don't know. Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, Lisa, you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, as everybody was talking, I had a memory. In about 1990, right, and I started Sunrider in 1988. So in about 1990, I ruptured a disc in my neck and I was real bad shape. And so my husband was basically taking care of me because I was trying to avoid surgery. And so I was doing a whole lot of joy. And so my husband comes upstairs this one evening and he says, Samantha, our Australian Shepherd, she can't get up on her back legs. And so here I was barely, like this, and there's my dog, can't get up. And my poor husband's like, oh my gosh, so he was talking about going to take her to the vet, but she was a big dog. And so I said, I was taking all this joy. So I said, before you take her, because we'd just spent a fortune finding out what was wrong with my neck at the hospital we didn't have insurance at the time. And so I said, before you go taking her there, try this joy. So it was like 4 hours of her not being able to get up. And then I thought about the joy. And I said, before you take her, try that. And within a half an hour, she jumped up. So like, was it the joy? Was it just the timing? But I swear it was the joy. And now this, 32 years later, or whatever, I'm sure it was the joy, because we have too many fabulous experiences with the products to doubt it.
That's awesome. Thank you. Oh, I have, go ahead, Margie, you want to share something?
Well, I just have to tell a funny story about, there was a guy years ago in Sunrider, there was a guy in Sunrider, his name was Hugh Nibley, and he traveled a lot internationally. And at the time they had the big tubs of New Plus. Well, he had put it, he couldn't carry a big tub, so he had put a bunch of powder in baggies. And as he was going through customs, they said, "What is this?" And he goes, "Oh, it's just my protein drinks or whatever." Back then, it was not a lot of people did that sort of thing. So they had a drug sniffing dog come in, and they opened it up and put it out on the thing, and the dog comes up and sniffs it and then eats all of it. It's pretty funny. The guy said, "I guess they're okay."
Oh, I love it. That's a great story. Well, let me tell my story really quickly. Years ago, when I first got started in Sunrider, I'm a retired pharmacist, but at the time I was working as a pharmacist in a hospital, and I had, 30 some years ago, you talk to people about herbs or Chinese herbs, they thought like you were crazy. So one of the pharmacists I was working with, I told her, what I was doing, and I told her about alpha-20C, that it could balance her liver and her immune system. So she bought a bottle from me, but I was following up on her, and she said she wasn't using it. And I said, "Millie, why aren't you using it?" And she said, "Well, I'm just not sure, Jackie." Well, then she tells me a few days later that her cat has been diagnosed with feline leukemia. And I said, "Well, Millie, if you're not going to use the alpha-20C, why don't you just give it to your cat? I mean, what do you have to lose? It's either give the cat alpha-20C or the cat could die. So just give it a try." And she said, "Oh, all right, I'll try." So she started opening up capsules and putting it in the cat's food. And I'm not sure how many days it was later, but the cat was starting to perk up. It was, not limp. And finally the cat got better, lo and behold. And she took the cat back to the vet. And this time the vet said, "I don't think this cat has feline leukemia. Maybe it was a false positive. I don't know." So Millie claims that, who knows, maybe it was a false positive, or maybe it was the alpha-20C, or maybe it was just an intervention, heavenly intervention, but her cat survived for a few more years. So that's my cat story. Okay,
Yeah.
Mary, you want to share something?
No, but I have questions while you're all here, so I can get your input. Is that okay, or do you want? Shall I wait?
You're fine. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So Kathy is my leader, and I'm giving my cat, who's been diagnosed with diabetes and kidney failure. Her kidney numbers are up. So I'm feeding her a teaspoon of New Plus with a shot of kidney medicine, about every day. And I didn't know, and what I do is I mix it up and I shoot it down her throat, because she's really stubborn about stuff. But I think she's doing pretty good. And I wondered, is there anything else that I can do for her? That's my question. So I'm giving her New Plus. I'm not giving her Cali, and I'm not giving her, what's the other one that everybody takes every day?
Fortune Delight.
Yeah, Fortune Delight. And don't know if it's good for her. So anyway, I would love to hear your input on that or your suggestions.
How old is your cat?
She's only 10.
Okay, Nancy has a suggestion.
Okay.
I would definitely add the quinary and the alpha 20C, because even in the condition that my older cat had, who's 17, that's connected to kidneys. And so the quinary really was the thing that helped, because rather than try to figure out everything myself, I figure, okay, if you get the quinary in, then at least you're feeding the digestive tract, you're feeding those organs and whatever. The other thing that I've done with my cats over the years, and even dogs actually, New Plus Original just in water, just a little bit of water, and you can make it thin. They'll lap it up that way. So that's another thing that I would suggest as a way maybe that yours will not be as picky. But I would definitely do the quinary and the alpha 20C.
Oh, and I forgot the Sunny Dew. I put a drop of Sunny Dew in her drinking water.
And Nancy, would you recommend VitaTaste since there's diabetes there?
No.
I haven't done anything with the VitaTaste before, but you know, that's why I like the quinary, because you're going to feed the whole body. And then I don't know if somebody else has tried VitaTaste, then I would say go for that. And one of you mentioned the Sunrise, which could be helpful as well, which I haven't done. I mean, I've had really good success with the quinary, the alpha 20C, New Plus. And then we haven't mentioned this, but I've always used the fruit and veggie rinse for any fleas or anything like that. That takes care of it. You can put that in the water, but because her system or his system is so gentle right now, I don't know that I would put in the fruit and veggie rinse right now. I think I would just feed it more, but I'm open to whatever anyone else thinks too.
So you don't
Much
think the Sun
appreciated.
Nectar, you don't think the Sun Nectar or Sunny Dew is something that you would put in or not? Cat with diabetes.
I think it's okay to put that in. I've put that in the water before with my cats. So,
My dog gets Sun Nectar every day in my drink.
yeah, that's not a problem. I thought the question was about VitaTaste. And that one I don't know about.
And think of it as your own body. Okay, if you had diabetes, what would you be doing? And if your kidneys are weak, I would be drinking a ton of Fortune Delight. I would do the same thing with the you know, in that case with lots of Sun Nectar in it to balance the blood sugar. But if an animal has the same thing, that's what I would do. But
It won't hurt to, you know, to try different products. Elizabeth, did you have something to say? No, maybe not.
Judy does.
Oh, Judy, go ahead.
I would just suggest also to check into the food, because the cat food and dog food, as we've already heard, isn't always healthy. So really read the label and try to find something, try to test that out. I don't make it every single time, but I make my own dog food. And that way it's so much easier. You know, if you have one of those Instapots, you just, you know, you throw in quinoa, some carrots, some green beans, some greens, and then I will get some, you know, a couple pieces chicken on top or whatever, and it flavors the whole pot. And I know with my mother used to do this. She would buy chicken necks or whatever, make the cat food when they got older because it was harder for them to eat. And also, I would be highly, use, of course, all the Sunrider products, but I would be highly suspect of the actual cat food that she's using also. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. I mean, some of it just, and peculiar, just like all of us, we have our own kind of way we react to foods and all, and cats are the same. Like some cannot handle some of the food on the market. And then, so if you could at least limit some of it or change it, and then make some of your own, and then with the Sunrider, you'll see a huge difference. But I know that they sweeten it, they do all sorts of stuff to make the animal, and the food dyes and coloring. Oh my goodness, you know, if it goes in and comes out bright colors, you know something's wrong there. So you have to look at that. I have one other quick thing to add, a little bit different, but in the past, I don't run into this objection so much, but we used to run into, oh, well, you're just so positive. And I'm just thinking, because I think it'll work, Sunrider works for you because you just love it so much. Or someone else would say, oh, how do I know it's just not positive thinking? I don't need to eat this or whatever. And I would say, try it on your pet. Your pet doesn't know how to think positive. So we would share all these experiences of pets that no longer like the pet treats, but like cauliflower and like green beans for treats. And I said, I can talk all day long and tell my dog how much better it would be if they would like cauliflower or green beans. But if I give them Cali, moisten their food with Cali, give them a little U plus, their whole habits change. So I just remember we used to use pets a lot to prove a point in that. And when they got arthritic and they were old, and we would put Cali on their food. And so people wondered, well, I don't know if it'll work for me. Well, hey, the dog didn't think so either, but doing good. You know, so kind of worked in reverse to help people see the benefit.
That is so true. Thank you so much. Let's see, Jay and then Don.
I just have a quick question about sprinkling Cali. Cali is a tea, so do you sprinkle the Cali powder out of the bag, or are you sprinkling the Cali tea in the water on the food? I don't understand.
Both. Either way.
Mm-hmm. Don, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just add a little bit to my experiences. When I was a boy, we had dogs. My father believed that they're carnivores, and we would buy horse meat from the horse slaughterhouse and partially boil it. We wouldn't overcook it. But if you gave it to them raw, it tended to make them a little bit aggressive. So we just fed them with the horse meat. But dogs are not supposed to be eating vegetables. I mean, they do eat them, but dogs are meant to eat meat. They're the same as wolves and other canines, I think. But now we've domesticated them. But you're not doing a dog a harm by giving it meat. The other thing was, and I can't think of what it was, I think it was Jay was mentioning it there. Sorry, forgot it.
Okay. I actually have a sister-in-law who is a dog groomer. She's been grooming dogs for over 20 years. And she's had, I'm trying to remember the type of breed of dog that she has. It's a small breed. But she just makes the dog's food herself. And it's pretty much vegetarian. I think she might also put in lentils sometimes and vegetables, and she makes it in her Vitamix. But these dogs, they live for like 14, 15 years.
I remember what it was I was going to say. We had dogs all through my youth, and we never had vet bills. Our dogs lived a long time. They were fed that way, and they never had vet bills. And maybe I'm suspicious, I don't know, but I think a lot of this pet food is causing a lot of the high vet bills. But because I never heard of dogs having human diseases the way the vets are pronouncing them. Like, I mean, diabetes in a dog, leukemia in a dog, those things that I never heard of those when we were kids. We used to take the dog was, if the dog was sick, we went to the vet. We never heard anything about that kind of stuff. And our dogs always lived to a good age. And you know, if something was wrong with them, we did put them down, that's for sure. But
Well, that
dogs were
might,
healthy. So
it
why
might
are
have
we,
something to
you know, I
do,
think we get stampeded, you know?
yeah, it might have something to do with these manufactured animal foods. Denise, did you want to say something?
Yeah, we've been rescuing Great Danes since 2004. So we've had a lot of Danes. The one I currently have, we rescued them, and they've always had like a lot of baggage. And so, you know, we had to deal with that. But the one that I have now, we got as a puppy. And he's been to the vet one time before I got him for all these vaccinations that never really got out of his system. He had lumps all over. So we don't vaccinate. We just get titers every year to make sure that he doesn't have rabies and things like that. But in the wild, like Don was saying, the dogs don't eat vegetables. They eat actually meat, but it's typically the bloody parts, the liver, any organs. So dogs actually prefer that kind of the meat, the organs of an animal. And so that's what I get calf's liver, I get chicken liver, different organs. I make my own. I make big meatballs for the Great Danes, you know, and then I supplement a little bit with some wet can, but very high grade quality. And anytime they have any stomach issues, I just put a little bit of Cali right into their water. We drink it up. And he's never been to a vet 8 years, only just to get checked for his titers every year. So I think that kind of high grade, you know, the organ meat is really good for the animal.
Okay, thank you.
So do you sprinkle Cali on the water, or do you make Cali and put it in the water?
I make the Cali and put it in the water. I make the Cali tea and then just add it to his water.
Okay,
I may say something. My understanding of Kelly is that in order to get the benefit of the Kelly, you have to steep it, because the Kelly is actually sprayed on a carrier product, and so what you want is you steep it for 3 or 4 minutes. You take the bag out. I know some people leave that bag in there, and all that does is it makes the drink bitter. So you just steep it for 3 or 4 minutes, take the bag out, and put the Kelly on whatever it is you want to use it for. That's my experience.
Monica, did you have something to say?
I was just going because my cat had kidney disease, and I can just count the mistakes I made. And actually, I think my cat lived longer because of Nancy. And what I have found is that the pets really know, like what people have said. One, I would definitely give them the best food. I would never now go to food for kidney disease. I would definitely, my cat actually ended up going in a condition where the cat had too much water. I didn't realize in the body. But what was interesting, he knew, meaning he would not drink New Plus that was mixed in water, but he wanted to drink, to eat New Plus as powder. So don't always assume that you need to mix it with something. He loved it. He would lick it up from, and I probably now, knowing that in hindsight, which is always wonderful, I would definitely use quinary, Fortune Delight. And because I think there were some issues of immunity, because of kidney disease, there was lower immunity, I would have added alpha 20C for sure. So thank you so much. I was sorry I was gone temporarily, because actually I was talking to Holistic Vet, who I wanted to get on this call, but he was doing surgery. So hopefully I can get this meeting recording to give it to him so he can help a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question. What about birds? I know people have birds for pets.
Okay, to answer one of your questions, Elizabeth Daniel sent a message. He said, a friend of mine gave her cat Fortune for a bladder infection and it cleared up. Okay, so that's a good thing to know. Lisa?
Does anybody, I mean, I don't know, maybe Jackie, you do, or Judy, but remember there was somebody who did homing pigeons?
Yeah, I know.
And he would, Judy, you remember that?
Yeah, remember he bred them. They were champions, and so he used prime again.
Yes.
So that he could get high quality and that they would breed.
In
So
fact,
that was
didn't he say he didn't even know it was for people? He
yeah,
thought
that was a
it was
great
just for
experience.
birds.
Yeah.
So
My cousins had birds, and his birds, he puts fruit and vegetable rinse in their water. They love to bathe in it. They love everything about it. They're particularly fond of mixed berry new plus. And he would use Cali. He's used golden seal if he thought one had something wrong, but they would demand it. They would demand their mixed berry in the morning and all. So maybe another time we can get him on. Yeah, they just love all the Sunrider stuff. Really, really cute.
I use mixed berry. Does that mean I'm for the birds?
It means you're healthy.
Jay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, and some of you on this call know, there are two people in the Abundant Living and Rising Stars team, Angelica and Christina, that have parrots. And they've actually explained to us that, and shown us pictures of their parrots that literally, they go right to the box of New Plus and they peck at it until they get it in the morning. And Christina put out a video where she mixes it and puts it on a spoon, and her parrots just take that beak and just gobble it up. So yeah, birds too, and we've seen it.
That's awesome. Is that on Facebook? That would be a nice video to attach to this one.
I think Christina Stenmeyer, it's on her personal page. I'm not sure if she
message her. Yeah, just tell her.
But she's a member of both Rising Stars and Abundant Living, so you could direct message her.
Okay, thanks.
Jackie,
Yeah.
also one of the years at Sunrider Convention, I sat next to a couple who raised championship racing horses. They used Sunrider and didn't want to tell other people because they didn't want people to know about it, the secret of why their horses were winning. So I've heard all sorts of things about people using Sunrider. So
that's awesome. Judy?
I just remember, Lisa, do you remember this? I think her name was Mary Randall. She had horses, and one was particularly kind of bad mood kind of horse, kind of nipped at everything, just a bad personality, really hard to deal with. And so she started giving that horse Beauty Pearl.
Beauty Pearl, I remember that, man.
Yeah.
I forgot.
That was a cool experience, I thought. So I've tried it on animals when they've seemed upset or when even traveling or whatever. I figure I give it to my kids, husband, myself, and we all get in the car to take a trip. So if we had to, different times we've moved, sometimes I've given the animals some Beauty Pearl.
And my husband if I'm snippy at all, he'll say, go have a Beauty Pearl and come back and talk to me later.
But it works on animals too. If someone is upset, so hey.
We used to call those things macho balls.
Yeah. Helps men too.
I have one more story. I remember one time many years ago, back in the 80s, I was at a Sunrider meeting, and a veterinarian stood up and told a story. He had been trying to treat this dog that had a terrible rash and was always scratching, and all of the medications that he was trying were not working, and he had been introduced to Sunrider, so he thought he would just give Primeagan a try. And I remember him saying that he would just stick the capsules of Primeagan in some meat and like throw it at the dog. And the dog started eating the meat and the Primeagan, and lo and behold, the rash cleared up. So that was one of the first stories I ever heard about giving Sunrider to your animals. And I thought, whoa, that's definitely not the placebo effect. If the dog got prime again and the rash cleared up, and it wasn't like a mind thing, or, it wasn't like wishful thinking, the dog actually got better. So that really impressed me in the early days when I first started eating Sunrider. Anybody else have any last minute comments?
I just want to mention one thing, because we talk about all these foods and eat them ourselves, but I'll tell you, I had this experience with my sister's dog, and I gave her some stuff. She's doing really great now, okay? But I was talking to her the other day and asking her again about Penny, this little dog, and she goes, yeah, she usually eats it, but sometimes she just leaves it there. And I was like, what do you mean she leaves it there? Well, I feed her, but then I go to work, and then later, whatever, she doesn't eat it. And I'm like, well, it's probably because it's old, because you're not supposed to leave the new plus out, right? So I said, you don't have to be like, I'm going to be gone extra long, so I'll give her more. You could just give her a little, and then she'll eat it, and then give her more later, like another little tablespoon, because she just, I hadn't educated her to the point where it's like, oh, these are live enzymes, she didn't want to have it herself, but she would give it to her dog, who's doing great, right? But then she's kind of treating it like regular dog food. Oh, just leave it in there until she eats it a day or more later. So I told her no, and that was probably why. So just FYI for people that don't know about that.
That's great. All right, well, we've gone over an hour. This has been awesome because everybody has so many terrific stories. So I really appreciate you all sharing. And I think this is going to be very helpful, not only for the pets, but for the pet owners. So thank you so much. And I will get this recording up as quickly as I can. I have a slow computer, but it will be available to everybody.
Thank
So
you,
thank you,
All right.
everybody. Really
Thanks,
appreciate
Jackie.
it.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Jackie.
Jackie.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.